Hello all, welcome to my studio. You can see it's a pretty chaotic place. You'll see it change over the course of these videos. I'm choosing to do my videos from my personal studio so that I don't have to wear a mask. Today we're going to go over a few of the tools that have come in your kit for the woodworking project, for the Sculpture for Non-Humans project. It's going to be a relatively simple, straightforward demonstration. It'll take 4 to 5 minutes most likely, and hopefully by the end you'll have a pretty good idea of how to use 3 different tools that are in your kit. One is the Ryoba Japanese style saw. This one is actually an authentic Japanese Ryoba saw. You'll be learning a little bit about using the clamps that are coming with your kit. This is not this again is not precisely the clamp that you received, but it works the same way. And then finally, we'll be using a little bit today this speed square. The one I gave you in your kit is a different color and it's a little bit smaller, but it's the same principle. So our focus today is the Ryoba saw. This is really what we want to learn to use. The other tools are super important as well, but this is the most complex of the 3. The demonstration for the 2 other tools will be quick. This one will be a little bit more involved. So what we want to do is set up so that we can actually cut a piece of ash wood, like the ash that I've provided you in your kit. Obviously this is a pretty long piece. This is one I dried out a couple of years ago. We're just going to make a few basic cuts on it so that you can see how we use the Ryoba saw, the Ryoba Japanese saw effectively. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach this this piece of wood to the table. Now quickly, just so you know, I also want to say that I'm going to be moving the camera a little bit. Instead of doing a lot of editing, I'm just going to run straight through this video, move the camera when I need to, so hopefully I don't make you too dizzy. I have a setup here, and I'm just going to pan down a little bit so that you can see it. I've got a setup where I've attached a board to a big hickory log that I use as a stable base for woodworking in my studio, certain kinds of woodworking. What we're going to do first is we're going to attach this piece of wood to the stump and the board I have attached to it. But before I do that, let me just call attention to a few things really quickly. I'm going to hold this piece of wood up relatively closely so that you guys can see the grain that's running through this wood. You'll see that the grain direction is like this, right? That is the grain direction of this type of wood. We want to sort of note that. We want to understand that the grain runs this way. So this is with the grain, this is across the grain, okay? That's important. That's a key component of today's lesson. And just to give you an idea, when you're looking at a cut across the grain, let's see if we can get it to focus. There we go. You can actually see the tree rings. So when we make a cut across the grain, we see all the tree rings. This is going to be important to us. I'll tell you why momentarily. So the first thing I want to do is I want to attach this board to my work surface. And I might need to readjust my camera just a little bit. Let me just sort of tilt it up a tiny bit. Well, you know what, that's not bad because you can see the work pretty well. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the clamps to accomplish this task. Now, the way these clamps work is they have a little ridge on this edge right here. Little ridge right there. That ridge actually functions to hold this little piece into a given spot when you put the right kind of pressure on it, okay? When you're sort of putting pressure onto this end, it won't slip, okay? If you pull back this little mechanism here, it allows you to slide up and down this bar, okay? This is what's known as a bar clamp, just so you're clear. Now I'm gonna just put our focus down there so you can watch me use it on this piece of wood. What we're going to do is we're going to clamp this piece of wood here to this piece of wood here. All right, simple thing to do. We're going to use this particular bar clamp to do it, and probably the other one as well. What that entails is, first of all, making sure that this little threaded rod here is screwed all the way back so that you have the threaded rod below this black piece here, below this part of the clamp. That way when I'm tightening, I have a lot of screw area, a lot of thread to work with. So, I'm going to unscrew that. I'm going to use, well, I don't even have to. I can actually sort of take the clamp like that and just, you hear that ratcheting? That's this little metal piece I showed you before, right there, sort of like moving as I push that down. So I'm just going to go down and then till it's tight, and then I'm going to just turn the handle. If I turn it relatively tight, my board is really stable. It won't move on my work surface. But here's a problem. As I've attached it right now, the bulk of the clamp is way up here above my work. I prefer to work in a way like this. I'll unscrew it and I'll pull that off. I prefer to put it with the top piece here down. Okay, so I'm going to just again ratchet it and then screw from underneath. And what I'm going right now is clockwise to tighten it until my board stops moving. I'm going to do that again over here. And the same on the opposite side, just to kind of really stabilize it. Like that. And then tighten it up. So what I've done is I've made a really nice clamp job to this surface that I've created. So I've clamped my wood to my work surface. Fantastic. So the next thing I want to do is start thinking about making a cut. Now here's the deal. This saw is designed in such a way, and I'll kind of give you a quick demo right here. It's designed in such a way that you have two different kinds of teeth. You have this tooth on one side and these smaller teeth on the other side. If we look even closer, if we can get a good view, you might be able to tell that the teeth on the side I'm showing you now, can we get it? There we go. The teeth on this side are sort of sharpened on alternating sides, okay? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you with this lens or not, okay? But the backs of some of those are wider than the fronts of the others. And that's because of the way the light's falling on it. The sort of like smaller looking tooth is the one that's sharpened and it has an edge that's in shadow. And the bigger looking ones are the same exact shape, you just can't see the bevel that's on the opposite side from where you're looking at. This side with the slightly smaller teeth is what we call the cross-cut part of the saw blade, okay? This side that you'll notice has slightly larger teeth is what we call the rip cut. Now the rip cut is designed to cut with the grain, so down the grain. The cross cut, that one, come on, focus. No, we're not getting it. Come on. Well, I can't get it to focus all of a sudden. There we go. With it just keeps going to the background. How about that? Ah, there we go. With these smaller teeth that seem a little bit more straight up, that's the cross cut. Okay. So when we want to cut across the grain, we have to use the cross-cut part of the blade. So here I go. I'm going to use this saw to make a cut across this board, all right? And I'm going to use the cross-cut blade. By the way, these teeth are razor sharp. You can see me touching them delicately, but it's important that you don't run your fingers down them. They will cut you like a knife. Same thing with the rip cut blade on this side. By the way, this Japanese saw, if I haven't already said it, is called a Ryoba saw. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to set up right now by making a mark to cut along. And I'm going to use this straight edge to do it. I didn't think to bring a pen over. So let me just grab one real quick. We'll use this red one. Maybe it'll make a mark that's detectable. All right. This is set up in such a way that it's got a raised edge. I'm able to put that raised edge along the edge of my board, and then use this edge as a right angle edge. So I can set it on like this, okay? And then I can actually sort of draw a right angle right along there. I hope that makes sense. So here I go. I'm using it to make a right angle. And what I've done is I've made a red line right there. Now what I want to do is cut along that red line. I'm going to do a cross cut using the smaller sort of like beveled edge teeth, and I'm going to make a cross cut. Now I want you to pay attention to how I do this. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to move this whole setup a little bit so you can see me a little bit more in profile. And we're going to tilt the camera down a little bit too so that it's easier to see the work instead of seeing my face, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut along the red line that I made right here. Now there's a couple ways you could potentially do this. You could hold the saw really quite vertically and saw away, but you have there's kind of a disadvantage to doing it that way. This wide part of the blade, this broad blade, is designed so that if you're making a lot of contact with the wood, it keeps your whole sort of cut straight. So if I'm coming in like this, boop, 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 it's only sort of like making contact with this big deep part of the blade as I cut. But if I cut at an angle like that, and I start to kind of dig in over a 2 or 3 inch area, I actually make a lot of contact with the broad side of the blade. If I do that, that actually helps to sort of secure a really nice straight cut. One more thing about this kind of a saw, it's what we call a pull saw, a Japanese pull saw. A regular kind of saw that you've seen with a handle back here, they push. They cut while they push. They stop cutting when you pull back. This one cuts while you push, and it doesn't cut while you pull back. So all my cutting power, you'll see right here, and I'll start toward the back of the saw, all my cutting power happens while I pull. Not cutting, cutting. Not cutting, cutting. See what I'm saying? So that's what we want to concentrate on. Now you can see already I'm kind of keeping my blade really kind of close to parallel with the surface of the board. Not quite, it's angled a little bit because I want to make a cut that extends across my line. I want to be able to control that, all right? And it's going to help if I have a lot of good contact surface. So here I go. I'm going to go in, I'm going to, not cut, cut, not cut, cut, not cut, cut, not cut, cut, not cut, cut. Now, I've already made a cut that's about 2 inches long that hasn't quite penetrated the board yet. That's perfect because now I have all of this surface area from here to here that's keeping the blade from sort of like skewing one way or the other and making my cut less than straight. The other thing I want to acknowledge, you want to move slow and take your time. And you want to be careful that you're not binding the blade like that. If you bind the blade like that while you're cutting by kind of pulling off to one side, your teeth can get caught. It's a very thin blade. Your teeth can get caught and you can break them off. Take your time, move slow, don't rush. Take your time, move slow, don't rush. So here I go. Just one hand. I'm holding my work back here with the other hand, keeping it in a safe place. And I'll just continue my cut. I can blow it off every once in a while to just make sure I'm following my line. No problem. Just like that. I'm doing a beautiful job. I'm just a little tiny bit off my red line, but it's a pretty good right angle cut. If I want to, I can lower it now, a little closer to sort of like flat, define my cut a little bit, and then re-angle. And now I have a guide to kind of get me through. Now you can see, this is not a speed demon kind of thing. This is not a race. Although I'm moving the saw pretty fast, I'm moving slow, I'm being careful, and I'm trying to pull the straw nice and straight with each stroke. So I just keep, and by the way, this wood that we're cutting, the ash is incredibly hard wood. Look at that, I can see in the image that we have lots of good contact here. That really helps to keep the cut nice and straight. So I continue my cut. Beautiful. Now what I like to do is change hands and just keep going slow. And then just cut easily, slower as I get closer and closer to the end. And nice little ring at the end. And I end up making a really lovely cross cut that's very clean, very little sort of like burrs or sort of torn edges on the wood. That is the beauty of a Japanese saw. It's razor sharp. It makes a beautiful clean cut. You just have to be patient, slow, keep the angle of the blade low like this instead of high, and you're going to have beautiful, excellent, exquisite cuts.